Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Peter Purvis podcast. And it's with great pleasure today I announce that my conversation is with a good friend and colleague who I've known since back in the 1980s. She is Anthea Turner. She needs no real introduction from me. And I began by asking her about her most recent achievement. What you've just done is something you've done before, but it's quite extraordinary. I'm going to ask you, why did you want to go back to Kilimanjaro and put yourself through the ordeal of climbing it for a second time?
I hadn't actually climbed it first time. I had a look at it. And there was a helicopter that you could go round and have a look. I thought, well, that's a good idea. That's really nice. And then I put it out of my mind. And then what happened was a little bit like you and myself, I was doing a podcast with somebody. He was called Andrew Barton, and he's a hairdresser. And he's quite well known in the hairdressing circles. And he also is an ambassador for something called Kidscape. And Kidscape, anti-bullying charity. And to cut a very long story short, he started to tell me about how badly he was bullied when he was at school and how much it affected his life, which is why he's an ambassador for Kidscape, and that they desperately need money to run their charity. Because, you know, some charities, as you and I know, because we've both been involved in so many different money-raising events and charities, if it's animals and often children, we know that it's quite easy, not easy, but it's quite easy to pull on the heartstrings and get people to donate. But it's very difficult for an anti-bullying charity because these children don't look like they've got a problem. The families will be working hard to try and support the child. What Kidscape does is they try and support the child, mum and dad, and actually, if the school will allow, let them intervene in the school as well, and sort of bring everybody together and try and eradicate this situation before it gets any worse. Unfortunately, children don't like to say that they're being bullied. They even don't like to tell their parents. They contain this. They don't say anything. They suffer in silence. Some obviously have terrible endings, the ending that you would never wish for any child. But when you and I were at school, if there was a bit of a dust up at school, you know, it might get sorted in the school playground and everybody went home and that was it. But unfortunately now with cyberbullying, that bullying carries on.
Yes.
It carried on into the night.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Andrew was telling me this, and you know, he was very emotional about it all, and he was crying, and he said one of his ways to raise money was to go and scale Kilimanjaro. He was pulling together a team to do it, to raise some money, and he said, you should come with me. And I went, yeah, of course, absolutely. We get talking, we carry on. He said, so are you coming? And I went, yeah, okay then. Okay, I'll come. So obviously I hadn't really involved my brain at this point properly. Just sounded like, so you know how sometimes, and you and I know, we've been down this road, it's easier to say yes than say no.
It's often hard to say no.
It's hard to say no. And it was a hot, sunny day. We were actually doing this interview on a boat on the Thames. It was a really lovely day. And I got a glass of wine in my hand, and so had he. And we chinked glasses. And I thought, damn, I think I'm going to Kilimanjaro. And then sort of slightly put it out of my head, thinking, well, it's not till next year. It's a next year problem. I'll think about it a little bit later on. That was last July. And obviously, the day started to loom and it started to get nearer and nearer. And before I know it, I've got my rucksack packed and I am off up that flipping mountain. I can be quite honest with you and say that it is harder than I ever expected.
Well, it's a very high mountain.
And unfortunately, they go up, don't they, mountains?
Oh, yes.
They don't go down, they go up.
Yes, I mean, mountaineering is, you know, it's a fearful thing. I've done a lot of rock climbing back in the past, But I've never been up Kilimanjaro. I think it probably suffered from altitude sickness or something. It's a big mountain.
Well, it's just shy of 6,000 meters. Altitude sickness starts to sort of kick in, or you realize that there's a bit of a problem somewhere around about maybe 4,000. Yeah. 4,000. But we noticed it. There's 28 of us ended up going.
Wow.
Obviously to raise awareness and money for Kidscape, and it was around about, I would say, 4,000, just tipping the 4,000 meters, where you started to feel a little bit lightheaded and not quite yourself. And obviously you're gasping for air and you are continuing to scramble up. And I call Kilimanjaro it's
not rocky.
It's very rocky.
But not rocks that you have to climb.
No. You haven't got your crampons on. You're not sort of digging in. No ropes are involved.
Yes.
But it's boulders. I don't think I want to see another boulder again. You're scrambling. You're trudging. You are scrambling over boulders. You go through so many different climate changes. But the thing that gets you, and we know it's all attrition, isn't it?
Yep.
You are sleeping and doing all your ablutions and eating on the side of a mountain for 7 nights, 8 days.
Yeah.
It's cold. It's really cold. You are going to bed in the cold, often damp and dark, because it goes dark quite quickly. And you are waking up in the dark, in the cold, and in damp, dependent on what the weather's been like that night. You get quite a bit of rain. Yes, you get sunshine. You can, in your day pack, you're like Heidi. You've got so many layers because you go from hot to cold to freezing.
So not the most enjoyable experience, but you must be very proud of it.
Well, yes, obviously. I tell you what was utterly amazing is there was 28 people who generally nobody knew each other. Few people knew each other. I knew one person. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where a group of people who, as I say, don't really know each other got on so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things when you pitch yourself against, whether it be a mountain or the weather or whatever hardship, where people pull together as a team. And you would have thought, and there was every opportunity for somebody to just lose their rag, because, there was one day when, and I can only describe it as sort of like if you were walking through Dartmoor on a very rainy, nasty, windy day, and it obviously would have a bit of an incline, but sort of you knew at the end of it, there was a nice pub and a log fire and, maybe fish chips and peas.
Nothing at the top waiting for you. Oh, no.
Absolutely not. There's an igloo tent waiting for you, which is probably a little bit damp and it's going to be cold. And when you've had your food, and food is obviously limited, it's what they can carry up the mountain, then you go to bed. Actually, I tell you what, the best thing, should anybody who's listening think, oh, I might go and do Kilimanjaro, I took a hot water bottle with me and it saved my life. Oh my goodness me, to actually get into my sleeping bag with my hot water bottle, snuggle down.
How did you get hot water into the bottle?
Because they do have, they have porters that carry water and food up the mountain. And then they have sort of gas cookers, so to speak. These guys, how they do it, and they, there's us huffing and puffing, and these guys go up and down that mountain, so many times a year, and they're the porters, and they are immense. Yes. They really are.
It's a bit like the Sherpas on Everest, I suppose.
Well, exactly. Exactly the same, whether it be,
So the workhorses for the people who are doing the hard climb.
Absolutely. And
and they've got the hard climb themselves.
And they, they are quite attuned to the lack of oxygen because they do it so many times. So they're acclimatized. But for us, you go quite a long way round. You climb high, and you sleep low. So although you climb up, then you come back down a little bit, not completely down, but you then have to come back down a bit because all the time you have to do it very slowly because you're really just acclimatizing your lungs.
Sure.
To the altitude. Of course, some of the fittest people have problems with altitude. It's nothing to do necessarily with physical fitness. It's just the way that your body...
How the body reacts to rather awkward conditions that they're not used to.
Absolutely.
Well, I've got to say, I'm full of admiration that you did it. I think it's quite amazing. And you're looking very fit because I know it's only about 4 days since you got home. So
I came home, you're right, a few days ago, and I walked into the house and it was like quite early hours of the morning because I landed at Heathrow quite early on one of those sort of, it was a night plane and I landed early hours of the morning, got myself on the Heathrow Express, got home, and as I walked in, and because Mark, my fiance, has been away, so he left about a couple of days after me and he's still not back yet. He's back in a few days. I walked in the house and I can hear something upstairs and a pigeon has fallen down the chimney.
Oh, yes.
Goodness knows how many days it's been in the house.
They leave quite a mess.
Oh, my goodness me.
We've had one in the house. I know all about that. Really unpleasant.
Feathers, poo, you name it, everywhere. And obviously there was a lot of poo on the mountain, you can imagine. And I come home and I think this is following me.
Oh dear. Just what you needed to welcome you back. Well, I think, there you are climbing Kilimanjaro and doing wonderful things for charity. You've come a long way from the young girl from Stoke-on-Trent to where you started out, where you were born. It's an area I know. I was at college at Alsager.
Oh, right, yes. Alsager College.
Not that far away. And funnily enough, I spent a lot of time in Stoke because at one time I used to present all the BBC's darts and they used to come from a place called Jolly's Club, which I'm sure you heard of and knew about. And,
I went there. I remember it well. Absolutely.
It's a good club.
It was a fantastic club. And I thought, obviously, then, back in the day, and I would have been at Jolly's in the 80s.
Yeah, that's when I was doing the darts.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And honestly, I thought scampi and chips in a basket with a bit of tartar sauce.
Fantastic.
What was that wine? It was always that Blue Nun or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
Honestly thought that was the height of sophistication. I thought I was blown in being invited to Jolly's.
It was a place that attracted a lot of stars and a lot of wonderful performers. Yeah, it was good.
And wise, all sorts of people played at Jolly's.
You had a happy childhood with your. I know your sister because, of course, I directed her in pantomime in Cambridge.
Of course. Well, we did actually. My dad was part of a family business that was in Stoke-on-Trent, which was founded by my great-grandfather. They started out making toilet seats and coffins, and then they moved.
Good combination.
Yeah. Actually, it comes at we've always said, Dad's still with us. He's 93, fit as a flea, and he's always said, actually, we should have stayed doing that because they went into then furnishings and, of course, world changed during the 70s and 80s and also the 80s into the 90s where everybody wanted, brand new, and IKEA arrived and all these different places, which I think saw the end of Turner and Sons really. But we should have stayed, as Dad always said, we should have stayed in coffins and toilet seats. I was very, very lucky that I had, and have my dad still with us. I have amazing parents who did everything they could to make myself and my two sisters happy. We lost my, middle sister, Ruth. She was actually born with spina bifida, And due to kidney problems that she had, we lost her when she was 14, nearly 15.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah. And that was obviously, I suppose, the biggest tragedy in our family life. But I always think I'm very lucky to have had parents who, not that they weren't rich, but they gave us a lot of time.
Yes.
Huge amount of their time.
Were they always supportive of the career you chose? Because I think you started in radio, didn't you?
Well, I think I started, I think Mum was actually an ex-teacher, and she stopped teaching when my sisters were born, so that she could homeschool Ruth, actually, which of course she did, because back in those days, nowadays Ruth would have been included in a normal school, but of course back in those days,
no.
Very, very different. And there weren't ramps for anything.
Yes.
We knew every service lift for every company in Stoke-on-Trent. You went shopping or went to a restaurant or anywhere. Mum and actually, what was I talking about? Hold on a second. I've done one of those things where you...
I was talking about, I said you started in radio.
Yes. Yeah. No, what happened was that I think Mum realised that her eldest child had started to struggle at school a bit. They didn't know at the time, but I have dyslexia, but it's an odd dyslexia because I can read, but ask me to spell anything and it all goes to pot. So I was sort of struggling a little bit at school with my written work, and Mum being an English teacher, but back in those days, had never really heard, dyslexia.
No, I know.
Wasn't talked about. I was one of the first kids to be statemented, actually, in 1973. So I was 13, and I was statemented with this thing called dyslexia. And I think what happened was Mum realised that the best thing to do was to channel my efforts into things that didn't involve a huge amount of writing. So I did ballet lessons, I did drama lessons. The school were very encouraging in anything to do with music and drama, and art. And of course, being in Stoke-on-Trent.
Nice theatres in Stoke.
Great
very
theatres
good.
Stoke-on-Trent. Huge amateur dramatics in Stoke-on-Trent. And I'm massively supportive of good old Amdram. And I think that she knew that whatever I was going to do in life, it was probably not going to be academic. It would involve Trip of the Light Fantastic somewhere. And I enjoyed it. So I did a lot of dancing school, a lot of amateur dramatics. And then purely by, you'll understand this. So all kids get to an age where you think a car is going to make a huge difference to your life. Like all you can think about is driving, escaping, going out and having a car. And my dad said he wouldn't buy me a car, but he would get one and I had to pay him back. So I needed to have a job. So I got a job working for the Automobile Association in breakdown and information services in Hanley, Stoke-on-Trent, even though I was carrying on with my Amdram and ballet and all the other lovely things I like to do. But this was purely to pay for the car. And at the AA, of course, as we all know, because we all listen to BBC local radio, they do the road traffic reports. So I was asked for the princely sum, and it was the money, obviously, that pushed me into this direction. They said for an extra £14 a month, I could do the road traffic reports.
Wow.
So well, yeah, I thought that's my petrol money, really, that is. Bit of going out money. I can go to Chelsea Girl and, buy a pair of shoes. There's all sorts of things I could do with that. So I started to do the road traffic reports on the local BBC station. Oh. And then I got friendly with the local BBC station. A boyfriend that I had at the time was working on the BBC station, and I became what is you and I will know as an anorak. So I was a very good broadcasting anorak. So if they were doing an outside broadcast, I'd be there, with stickers and things and just helping out. And I realized that I sort of quite enjoyed that world.
A bit like being a runner, really. Yeah.
Well, yes, it is. It's a runner. It's a runner. And so then what happened was a commercial station, shock horror, a commercial station was about to open in Stoke-on-Trent. So I thought I'd go for a job there. I would apply for a job. So I did, as the record librarian. It seemed the easy job to get my foot in the door.
Record in music, you mean? Music
proper
records.
Those round black things that we used to have with a hole in the middle.
Lovely discs.
Discs, proper discs. So being dyslexic, it means I'm very organized. So I, from scratch, set up a record library. I had to get in touch with all the record companies, ask for back catalogue, create a record library, create a little file system, because obviously no computers or anything. So cards that said, where the name of the record, where it was in my little library.
Yeah.
And it just became this sort of my domain, the library. And every so often I would go on air and do little bits and bobs. But to be perfectly honest, I loved being a record librarian. And then they asked me to do lots of other things. And it was at the time where radio realized that it couldn't survive out of advertising revenue alone. So it needed to look for other things to bring in money. And so I, with the help of some of the guys on the management, set up a little PR department. So I subcontracted my job in the record library and started to do PR for them. And I remember we booked Leo Sayer, put him on, sold the tickets, made some money. Yeah. We did a signal radio competition. And just before I left, I booked David Cassidy. Which, wow. Of course, as you can imagine, I was his number one fan. And to this day, still support the David Cassidy Foundation. So, and that was it. And I actually came down to London not to be on the telly or anything. I actually came to work for a record company.
Yes.
To be, a plugger, a girl who would go and plug records to, all the radio stations.
It sounds like a great job and absolutely lovely if you like your music.
Absolutely. So I just thought I don't know if it was the music that motivated me or I just thought it was a fun life.
Yes.
No, that sounds great.
Have you always been well organized? I mean, was that the start for you in terms of keeping things organized? Because you've had a very up and down sort of life and career. The tabloid press hasn't been very kind to you.
No, they've been organised against me on some occasions. But as far as organisation's concerned, I think, and I've spoken to, and I give speeches as well, I've spoken to a lot of people who are dyslexic, whether they are the parents of dyslexic kids. I've worked for the Dyslexia Association. And I think because there is a bit of a brain jumble going on, that you organize what you can see. Yeah. So I'm quite tidy and organized. Things go in boxes, things are filed. I wish I could be a bit more organized with my computer though, because that huge misnomer to me. But I'm very good at organizing what I can see. So, I'm even looking around my kitchen now, it's quite tidy and organized, and I do know where things are. And I think that it's stood me in good stead because I've always known that I had to work twice as hard as the next person. If I'm doing a television program at Blue Peter, for instance, yep. I would study the script and study it again. And even though by the time I arrived at Blue Peter, we had autocue, not when you were there, but I would always know my part. I'd know everybody else's. And I'd put those extra hours in because I had to.
Yes. That must have been hard because, I was very lucky. You talk about autocue and everything else. Well, we didn't have it, but I was in weekly rep in the theatre. And so we did a new play every week. And I did 2 years in the same company. And that meant 96 plays in 2 years. And you had to learn and throw things out. but I read very quickly and very easily, and ultimately things just absorb them. I often never looked at my script for Blue Peter until I got into the studio, except I might look to see whether I've got a lot to do or only a little. But that was it. Because once you got in the studio and you start working, then the words come to you as you do things. The action takes you through it. Yeah. And that's how I learned my scripts eventually. I didn't even ever bother sitting down and learning it. That was after a couple of years, I've got to say. But, tell me about, let's stick with Blue Peter for a minute, because you only did it for a couple of years, but I know it had a very big influence on you because it's such a lot of work in 2 years.
Absolutely. I think even I feel I was there for longer, and people assume I was there for longer.
I think you were there for longer, but no.
But you know, what happened was, as I joined Blue Peter, because remember, the other thing is that when I arrived at Blue Peter, I wasn't an unknown. By this point, fast forward, I had already done Saturday morning television, Top of the Pops. I'd done an About Britain holiday program, appeared on lots of what we call, lots of odds and sods, hither and thither.
Well, you did Top of the Pops for quite a while, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Lovely job. What a great job.
Yeah. And I'd done a series called The Best of Magic for TV. So, and they specifically at the time, which is unusual for Blue Peter, they wanted somebody to hit the ground running that could just slot in with a job. So, I mean, I wanted that job so much. I've been a fan since I was a child. I still have a picture of you, Val, and Pete.
No, I'm Pete and John.
Yes.
Come on, wake up. Forgive me.
I think my brain is still up on that mountain. and when I went to the audition, I was sent, obviously, I believed that you had sent it to me, but obviously you wouldn't have known anything about this. But I was awarded a Blue Peter badge because I sent in instructions for a make that I thought was quite brilliant. It never made it to the television, but very kindly, I was sent a letter, a picture of Petra, and a Blue Peter badge, of which when it came to my audition, I wore it on the inside of my jumper as my little sort of lucky mascot there. Obviously, you were my Blue Peter era. And I remember being very excited when Leslie Judd arrived because she was like so hip and trendy. And she'd been on the Young Generation and she danced. And I just thought this was utterly amazing. And I lived I remember living my life through Blue Peter as a youngster, because I remember when Val went to Kenya with Princess Anne. And of course, Princess Anne was my Princess Di, Princess Catherine. She was so glamorous. Yes. So beautiful, so glamorous. And I just wanted that. I think sometimes I thought, well, I wanted it too much. Anyway, I was very lucky that I got the job.
Can I just say at the moment, whilst you were talking about that Royal Safari, the previous podcast to this one was Valerie Singleton with me, and we were talking particularly about that. It was the third pod I've done with her, and it's very informative, very entertaining about the Royal Safari. Carry on, please.
Well, I can't remember how old I would have been at the time, but I was like massively impressed by all of this. And so I got the job. So one of the reasons, I think, going back to it feels like I was there for longer, was that people assume because to a certain extent I was already known. And then the other thing was we celebrated, let me just think, it was the first big birthday that we'd all celebrated. So 35th. It would have been. So I was there when we had 35 years of Blue Peter.
And was it the celebration at the Natural History Museum? Was that
was a later one.
That was a later one, was it? Yeah.
This one, I just remember being in the studio. You were obviously there. Val was there. I'm pretty sure Leslie came as well. John was there. And we were obviously slightly centre stage because we were the current Blue Peter presenters, which would have been John Leslie, myself, and Diane Louise Jordan. So, and we are, isn't it wonderful? It's like you and Val, we are still a real threesome. You know, we all get in touch. Whenever John's over, we see John. Diane and I are best friends. You know, we're it's not a showbiz relationship. It's a proper friendship.
You become a team.
Yes.
On Blue Peter, and that always lasts.
Yeah.
I mean, I chatted with Val a couple of days ago, something we might do together, which we'll see, may come off. But I mean, it's, yes, no, there's something that you can't get out of being.
You know.
It's something you always are. I mean, I remained wonderful friends with Johnny. Johnny Noakes and I were exceptionally good friends. I miss him still, actually. He's the kind of guy, you know, I always knew what he was going to do before he did it. I knew what he was thinking. I knew, and he never really relaxed when he was being John Noakes.
Yeah.
That was a character that he developed. Normally he wasn't like that. But when you started performing, he went into John Noakes mode and gave a performance like he did. And that's how people remember him. But that wasn't really John. He wasn't really like that.
But it is. And you know, you had a team, we had a team. I think most people, not all, I have to say, felt the way that, you know, you, John, Val, Leslie, myself, obviously.
Well, there was a time when the presenters changed a lot. We were lucky. You know, 4 presenters in 12 years.
Yeah.
I was on it. That was
absolutely.
You can't ever not live that again. That's there. That's permanently part of you.
Oh no, I think all that did come over, and I think that was part of it. That's part of the charm, wasn't it? And
I think it probably was, yeah.
Yeah, and the children, you know, I wanted to believe as a viewer for your team, I wanted to believe. I practically, in my mind, you would probably all have lived together as well.
All in one big house with all the pets and all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you made an absolute name for yourself with doing the make of Tracy Island, which I know you've still got, haven't you?
I do. I'm sitting here in my kitchen, and somewhere up there, so I'm pointing up in the loft, is Tracy Island. So that was a big high point for Blue Peter. So not only had we had the 35th birthday, where, you know, it felt like whole of Television Centre came together for that. But then we had Tracy Island, and oh my goodness me! I mean, that was stratospheric. Really, none of us thought it was going to be what it ended up being. No. Such a sort of national obsession of making Tracy Island. No way did we think that. Thunderbirds has just celebrated its 60th birthday, and I was very much part of its 60th birthday celebrations.
Yes.
With the help of Corgi, who have made, you know, any fans who are listening now, the Corgi toys that have been made for the 60th celebration are mint. Absolutely beautiful. I've got one of each of them. They are quite stunning. The box, the way that they have crafted each of the rockets is
yes.
So I did quite a lot with Corgi and the Anderson family as well. So I sort of felt that I've been adopted by the Thunderbirds family.
Yes.
And for the 60th, Tracy Island obviously came down from the loft, and I looked at her and I thought, oh, I think she does need a little bit of a facelift. Not too much, but, you know, she does need a facelift. So the table I'm sitting at here in the kitchen, I cleared the table, put paper down, got paints out, and I gave her a really lovely facelift.
A polish up.
I gave her a polish up, and then there were various events that we went to with, obviously, Tracy Island, and I did podcasts. I did a lovely program for the ITV with Scarlett Moffat, It was wonderful. It was really, really wonderful to still be part of that.
Yes, I mean, it's an iconic series, absolutely. Thunderbirds was really extraordinary. I interviewed Jerry Anderson.
Yes.
They had a lovely house out in, I think it was in Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
And he had two lovely, either whippets or, I think they were whippets. It might have been greyhounds. And I was actually editing a magazine at the time, which was called Peter Purvis Mad About Dogs. This was in the 90s.
Oh.
And so I had a section in there called Peter's Friends. Not that I knew all these people. And I interviewed him as one of my friends. But basically, it was about their dogs and how they looked after them. But he seemed an absolutely charming man.
Oh, no, he was. And his son and daughter, so Jamie and Dee, I've, now met on so many occasions.
Yes.
And, I do feel very much, sort of, if there's anything going on about Thunderbirds, somewhere along the line, I'll be included. But you know what it was like making anything on Blue Peter, because it was always a live show, obviously. Yeah. And you had a finite amount of time to be able to execute it. So you had to practice and practice so that you were really fluent in sticking and gluing and putting things together.
Yeah.
And there was quite a bit of pressure on.
Oh, absolutely.
And for that one, I can honestly say I must have done a good 10 days practicing.
Wow.
Because when people think, oh yeah, where everybody's, all these little sections, here's one I made earlier. I actually had made that one earlier because I practiced it so much because we had to get it right. And there was just no room for messing anything up. Absolutely none.
Well, some of them were extremely complicated. And that one I remember was, I was terrible at them. I was so bad at them. They didn't ask me to do them. I can remember doing what I was asked. There was a model of an underwater city that was, it was only about the third or fourth make I'd ever been asked to do. And I'd not been particularly good at the other ones. And I made an absolute hash of it. The thing looked awful at the end. It was, I was just so bad. I've never been very good with my hands, and it just wasn't there. But we never got anything in advance. You were talking about having 10 days preparation for that.
Yeah.
We would have got it on the day and done.
Goodness me.
And again, no auto cue, no nothing.
Yeah.
You go in, this is what you do, so is that right? And you did it. I was no good at that. Absolutely terrible at makes. I'm glad, actually, because I didn't like them.
Oh, I love them. I absolutely love them. And as well as John and Diane didn't particularly like doing them. So they were really, really happy when this make for Thunderbirds, which they knew was going to be extensive, landed in my lap. I was obviously over the moon. I thought this was great. The other two were just poo-pooing the whole thing, going, no. But I suppose because coming from Stoke-on-Trent, I am the person, I think Johnny Vegas and myself, who's the only other person that you will know who has an A-level in pottery, craft and design.
Oh, really? Yes.
And people from Stoke-on-Trent, that's quite a normal thing. Pottery, A-level in pottery.
I thoroughly enjoy the Great Pottery Throwdown on television. I love it.
Yes.
Absolutely love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I went to the factory, I was doing Antiques road trip, and I went to the factory where they film Pottery Showdown, and they got a wheel and they said, would you like to have a go? And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I haven't done this for such a long time, but it was amazing. Getting back on a bike, slap that piece of clay down, get your hands around it, start the wheel going, pull, it rose, it did.
My daughter-in-law's father has works of his in the B&A pottery.
Really? Oh my goodness me. The only place my works are with my mum had obviously kept everything.
Yeah.
So there are some little bits and bobbies and I tried to say, Mum, we can't keep all these things. We really can't keep all these things, but she kept everything I ever made.
Amongst other things, Blue Peter, as I said, is a sort of landmark area in your career, because there is such a lot of work involved in doing 2 years of it. You're doing something like 160,
Oh, yes.
180 shows, whatever it is, plus
Yeah.
filming, plus everything else. So it is very intensive. What's been your most enjoyable work?
I would say, there's two programs I've loved. One is Blue Peter, and the other, I did something called Anthea Turner Perfect Housewife, which is a very tongue-in.
It's quite niche.
But it was quite neat, and I just love that. I had such good fun doing that. And we did 3 series of it. And it was all about really, housewifery and cleaning and tidying and, making things. And I truly, truly love that. And you can always tell, because as you go on over the years, people will come up to you and say, oh, I used to love. And so many people come up and say, I used to love Perfect Housewife. I learned so much. And I've been in quite a lot of debates, really, about the fact that we have, unfortunately, schools once used to do domestic science. So you learned from your parents, but also at school, how to cook, how to look after yourself, how to look after others, how to clean. And then it was taken as, oh my goodness me, we can't possibly be doing that. There must be other things that children can be doing. But I think that all those lessons should come back into the curriculum, because we have created a generation who don't actually know how to cook from scratch. They don't know how to clean. They don't know how to survive, really. And it's a complicated world out there now, and one which I think for young people, because of social media and computers and now AI and everything else. But to come back down to basics, I'm so grateful that the school I went to were fairly hot on making sure that you could cook and look after yourself.
It's something I don't believe they do domestic science anymore, do they, in school?
No, occasional schools, some schools do, but it's not one of those things which is across the board. Yeah. And, we had fabulous teachers, and they were domestic science teachers. So it wasn't that you were expecting a teacher who was already overloaded to be doing that as well. And just life studies, even I work with an organization called Oasis, who has, in inverted commas, a little farm. It's a small piece of acreage in London. And so some of the kids at that school have looked at a chip and eaten a chip and really enjoyed that, but never realized that it had anything to do with a potato.
Exactly. I mean, I do find that quite extraordinary. Simple things that lots of children don't seem to understand or have any knowledge of.
It is a great shame. And I do hope that we manage to push through this, what they're doing really in Australia, and that we take back control of social media and children, so that, I know we think, it's an information highway. You can learn how to do so much on social media, but that's because we're adults and we pick and choose what we want to, we want to do and how we want to use it. I think for children, it's very dangerous. And I am hoping very much so that they push through the bill that they're trying to push through, where that there is an age limit on social media.
How did you cope with the press when they were so intrusive into your personal life? I know that I read a quote somewhere from Piers Morgan saying that the press interest in you ruined your career. I wouldn't say it has. You're still there, and you're still upfront and open and fresh and bright. You're the same girl I've always known ever since I met you. No, but you are.
Thank you. Well, I think there was a time, I suppose, I didn't see it coming, really. And I would say that I was at the forefront of a movement where you and I, we were jobbing television presenters. And then all of a sudden, the rules of engagement changed. The program was always king. We just happened to present that program. But then all of a sudden, the presenter became a personality. And I'm not talking about personalities that you and I have, like,
no, I know what you mean.
Bob Monkhouse, or it was, anyway, that in fact, do you remember, well, you will do, because we're the same era to remember this, when on Morecambe and Wise, Angela Rippon was sitting there pretending to read the news, and then all of a sudden, the newscaster's desk was removed and she did high kicks and she was with Morecambe and Wise. And that was, wow. Oh my goodness me. Whereas now it's a very normal thing to happen. If Susanna reads that for comic relief, we'd all be laughing and we would expect to do that. But what happened was, so I leave Blue Peter, I arrive at GMTV, and not only have I got my bum on the sofa, then very quickly I'm presenting the National Lottery, which becomes a national obsession.
I think you did the first one, didn't you?
Absolutely.
The very first,
so I was there everywhere with the National Lottery and every single morning on GMTV. Every time, then there's other programs are offered to me, this, that, and the other starts to happen. You've got a glossy magazine called Hello Magazine, and then you've got another glossy magazine that comes on the scene called OK Magazine. So all the newspapers start to think, hold on a second, we're missing out here because we're not getting the stories. So they all start producing their own little glossy magazine, Fabulous with the Sun, and the Mirror had one, and the Express had one, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But the pool of people that they had to pick from was still the same. It was quite a small pool, really. It was just us on telly, soap stars. Yep. Reality television hadn't really kicked off by this point.
No.
So all of a sudden there was the feeding frenzy. And I, myself, probably Ulrika Johnson, Carol Smiley, Carol Vorderman, we were there. We were right at the front of the feeding frenzy. And I don't think, nowadays, in that sort of, so they've got PRs. They've got we didn't have anything like that. We had a management company, and it was as much a shock to them as it was to me, as it was to even the people at GMTV. What's all fuss?
It was a kinder world back then. Yeah. In the 70s and 80s, it was much more gentle, much kinder to people.
But we were part of a movement that you didn't sort of see coming, because, every time you do an interview, you give a little piece of yourself away. Then, of course, my personal life got into a little bit of a tangle, and I have completely delivered them that on a plate. I think that nowadays you close down, you be quiet. I try to defend myself, which is the worst thing actually you can do.
Yeah.
Just go zip it. Nothing. Everybody is far better at dealing with it now than I was, because it was a juggernaut. It came out of a side street. It really did.
Yes. Do you think that you've learned a lesson there?
I have, but I'm the only thing, I was talking to Anne Diamond about it. We were chit-chatting. I can't remember where we were on Jeremy Vine or something like that. And we were just saying, whatever it is, we are still here and we're still doing it. We all sit here, the rounded human being that you are, because of your experiences in life. And I learned the hard way. It's in your attitude. I'm going up and down Kilimanjaro. You're doing podcasts, editing, still out there. I follow you. I know that you are still very much part of this business and enjoying it, and it keeps you youthful.
I never took risks, I don't think, really, with my career. I did a couple of Blue Peter made you take risks at times. Yes. And you discovered afterwards you weren't insured. But that's another story, which we won't go anywhere.
How many helicopters have I dangled out of over the sea?
It was all enjoyable, and I never actually minded, and we survived it, whatever it was. But you did take some risks.
Yes, I did.
I mean, you go on things like Celebrity Big Brother. I mean, I would not touch that with the barge pole. I've not been invited, but I would never have touched it with a barge pole. You went on dancing with ice. Dancing on
no,
ice.
actually, I call it dancing with bread knives strapped to your feet.
Celebrity Big Brother was a hell of a risk, and I'm sure you didn't enjoy that.
Well, funnily enough, I was with Vanessa today.
Vanessa Feltz.
Yes, Vanessa Feltz.
Yeah.
And I'm on her show tomorrow on Channel 5. And because I did it for comic relief. So what happened was, and it's quite a benchmark in television that Vanessa, myself, Jack D, Chris Eubank, Keith Duffy, Claire Sweeney, we all went into the Big Brother house. We did it free of charge for comic relief. And it was an experiment which Richard Curtis had come up with for Weddings and a Funeral. Richard Curtis, and I never forget, I sat in his kitchen in Notting Hill, and he kept on feeding me hobnobs because he knows I like a hobnob, until I said, yeah, okay, then we'll go in. So we all entered the Big Brother house for comic relief, but it very, very quickly, and they say it takes non-celebrities quite some time to just get used to the cameras and to forget the cameras are there. It took us 20 minutes. We absolutely dropped all our guard. And before you know it, there's all sorts of things going on in that house. We're arguing over tea bags. It was quite life affirming. Vanessa and I in particular have been friends from that moment, and we are still thick as thieves. And I absolutely adore her. And it's because we met when we have a shared experience. Up until that point, there wasn't I'm a celebrity anything. That was the first time they'd taken a television format, and put celebrities in it. You could just see the cogs then started turning at the BBC, the ITV, Channel 4. What else have we got another format we can put celebrities in? Because this obviously works. And the biggest one they came up with was not only to then put celebrities in the Big Brother house every so often, was I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. And it was all born out of realizing that putting a whole load of people in a interesting situation would get viewing figures.
Yeah. And witness the traitors.
Absolutely.
Anthea, I've got to say, I almost enjoyed the traitors as much as I've enjoyed our chat today. It's been absolutely marvellous. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And I hope you've enjoyed listening, whether that's at home, in the car, or wherever we happen to meet. To help support the continued production of the podcasts, I've launched a Patreon page. It's packed with some rather special extras, including my own commentaries on many of my shows, early and ad-free listening, exclusive Q&As, and plenty more besides. You'll find the link in the description, or simply search Peter Purves on Patreon. I'm very much looking forward to chatting with you there, and as a little welcome, you'll find me discussing my appearance in The Office. Take care, everyone. Until the next time, adieu.